Class is in session, and man, is it good to say that again. It's hitting the books here on Pub Sports Radio, Season 3. And we're happy to be here. Ian Cameron and my right wing, my line mate, if you will, to use a hockey term. We've done shows on this channel now for years. We're back. It's Conor Mack, and yours truly back again for another season. C-Mac, it's college football season. It's back, and that's a very good thing for all of us.
It is. I'm such a big baseball guy. And but man, this summer they always feel long. Maybe it's because we're back to normal sports, like scheduled. You know, we've had these last couple of years with COVID, so it just felt like a long summer. But I'm just glad, football is back. College football, third season hitting the books. I'm pumped, man. Week 0 is not great, and I think there's some good games. I don't know how much of value here. I know you'll probably be firing off, my guy. Shocker. But I hope we'll get through these 7 games that we have and kind of tear them apart here and see if we can get some winners.
Absolutely. We got 7 games for week 0 coming up this Saturday, and we will break them all down for you right here, hitting the books. And we'll be here each and every Monday throughout the college football season, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific time. When we get into the normal weeks where we've got a full slate of college football action, we will, of course, take apart all the weeknight games, just like we did last season, and then a handful of the Saturday games as well. We'll try to talk as many of the Saturday games as we can. That's the way it's going to be here on Hitting the Books, just like you've come to expect over the last 2 seasons. No change in the format. Shout out to everyone here in the chat, including our guy, Jimmy the Bag, spending his well-earned, well-deserved Monday afternoon off here and joining us on our premiere edition for this season of Hitting the Books. Shout out to Jimmy the Bag, Gerald Jones, Jay Smooth, Tori Coker, Rye Cape, Viper NB, Kong's Clips, Creekman 581, and everyone joining, and our new members as well. Boss Up Chopper, Winner's Circle, Lee Lewis. Shout out to you guys becoming a member of the Pub Club here, if you will, the Pub Sports Radio YouTube channel. And you should be a member. And if you aren't, make sure you get to stepping and get to doing that and becoming a Pub Sports Radio YouTube member. I'm ready to break down some games. It's been a while since I've been able to talk a college football game. So let's get underway. We will start with a trip across the pond to Dublin, Ireland, where it will be Navy taking on Notre Dame. And it will actually be the very first college football game to kick off the 2023 season, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. We've got Notre Dame, a 20.5-point favorite here. Neutral field, although I'm sure the Notre Dame faithful will turn out in droves here in Ireland to support their team. They're 20.5-point favorites, 50.5 being the total here in this game. Let's start with Navy, okay, because this is going to be a fascinating team to watch. It's going to be very weird to see a Navy team take the field to begin a season without Ken Niumatalolo being on the sidelines. 15 seasons as a head coach there, and he was actually a coordinator with that program before that. And, of course, we saw the disappointing season, the loss at the end of the year to Army, and then, of course, the very, very disrespectful and abrupt firing of Ken Niumatalolo late in the season. So Navy now is starting over a little bit here from the coaching standpoint. And when you look at Navy here coming into the season, it's going to be fascinating to see the transition. And you could probably say this, Conor, about all these service academy teams where there is a change in the rules in college football this year. Cut blocking is being outlawed. And so for all of these teams like a Navy that have been running triple option offense for all these years, how is it going to impact them? And you are unfortunately now seeing Navy and Army and Air Force having to sort of revamp the way they run their offense because of this. And for Navy, it looks like they are going to go to – it's still going to be a run-heavy offense. Grant Chestnut takes over as the offensive coordinator. They bring him in from Kennesaw State. Brian Newberry is the new head coach here with Navy. And he is someone that's been with the program for a while. But it looks like they're going to keep concepts of the triple option in this offense. It's going to be more shotgun here for Navy with this new offense, but it is still going to be very run heavy. What's a very interesting quote here from the offensive coordinator, Grant Chestnut, is it's totally different, he says. New verbiage, and it's a totally new offensive system in a lot of ways. So what does that tell me when I read that from an OC? It tells me there could be some growing pains here early in the season, maybe for Navy's offense, even though they do bring back a very experienced quarterback in Ty Lavatai, who we remember last year was the starter for this team. He definitely has the experience, but again, you're seeing a little bit of a change here in the Navy offense coming into this season. You know, the offensive line last year does return 4 or 5 starters. The O-line didn't have, wasn't great last year by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly comes back with some more experience this year. And that's going to be probably a good thing here for Navy. We know their issues last year were on defense, big time, with this Navy team. They're actually not bad, Navy, against the run. But they were pretty bad in the secondary. And when you look at this matchup and you flip it over to Notre Dame, and what's going to happen here with them is they bring in, and you talk about this could be actually one of the biggest quarterback upgrades in college football this season. When you're talking about the Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine duo from last year, who just weren't any good, weren't consistent, making mistakes, throwing bad interceptions, killing drives with just horrible accuracy problems at times. And now you go from those two to the Wake Forest transfer, Sam Hartman, who comes in at quarterback this year for Notre Dame. It's going to be just a huge upgrade. He's got a big arm. He's certainly got some weapons. They're going to miss the big tight end, Mayer, who is just an absolute beast for Notre Dame, but there's still plenty of weapons to go around here for the Notre Dame offense. They also have a new offensive coordinator this year. And it's funny because the new OC is a guy that worked under Neil Brown in West Virginia the last couple of years. And, is it a great hire? I'm not so sure, C-Mac, because West Virginia's offense was kind of up and down, the last couple of years. But the thing that's working for Gerard Parker here, the new OC, Marcus Freeman hiring him in the offseason, was, Sam Hartman's a very experienced and a very talented quarterback. Don't screw it up with the play calling. Let him do his thing. Let him play to his strengths. They'll be fine. I think the O-line is going to be excellent for Notre Dame. They've got probably one of the best left tackles in all of college football, Joe Alt. He's going to be a high-level NFL draft pick next season. That's going to be significant for them, no question about it. In fact, both tackle positions are extremely strong, no doubt. And the O-line is definitely an area of strength for this team. The D-line, it's going to be interesting because they got to replace an All-American, Isaiah Foskey. There is some turnover along that defensive front coming into the season. They've got a lot of options at linebacker. The secondary, should be fairly decent. But when you look at the offense, I think there's definitely going to be a lot of capability. Estime is back as the running back for this Notre Dame team. They're definitely going to have some solid weapons to work with in terms of the receiving game for Notre Dame coming into this year, including Tobias Merriweather, who should be really, really potent for them in the passing attack. The one thing we see from Navy is they do not stop passing attacks. Very good quarterbacks, very good passing games.
Yes, the last few years.
Yeah, they just have never had a very good secondary going up against a good passing attack. So I think Notre Dame can score a boatload of points here. It's going to be what will this new look, revamped Navy offense, which cannot run triple option anymore. It's doing a shotgun run-oriented offense this year because of the cut blocking being banned. How are they going to be able to gel this quickly? I did have a lean to the over here, and I still lean that way. It's 50-50.5. Here's the concern, because I think Notre Dame's going to score at will. It's what are you going to get from Navy here? The weather is going to be a little iffy for Dublin on Saturday. We're looking at 70% chance of rain, although the wind won't be that bad. I do think there's an element to this game where Navy's offense, it's sort of this big mystery, and maybe it's something that can take Notre Dame's defense kind of aback here, take them by surprise, because we have thoughts of what the new look Navy offense could look like, but I don't think anybody is sold on what it actually will look like. And we've not seen it on tape. We've not seen it in a game situation yet. Maybe that's something that could really cause Notre Dame's defense problems here, just because of lack of familiarity with what they're going to see. So I do have a lean to the over. It's a lot of points to lay, but I just don't know where Navy's going to stop Notre Dame. That being said, I don't want to lay this many with Notre Dame on a neutral field. I'd probably lean to a Notre Dame team total and a full game over at this point. when it comes to this game. But again, check the weather. And keep in mind, last year's Navy-Notre Dame game was an extreme shootout, flew over the total. And Notre Dame didn't even have any quality quarterback play last year. And the Navy-Notre game last year still went over the total. So I do definitely have the over circled. I'm waiting to see what this weather situation dictates here closer to kickoff. C-Mac, what are you thinking here for this opener, Navy-Notre Dame?
Shout out to the chat. Shout out to our guy Arthur Mead Jr. becoming a member. We appreciate you, my guy. Always supporting us over the years. Shout out to Arthur Mead. Let's hit the weather, like you talked about. I see rain kind of all day. Over there in Ireland, it kind of comes and goes, and it's usually not too heavy. So that will be interesting. And I thought the total was set a little low. Totals for me, I love totals in college football, Vanna. With the new rules, the cut block and the clock here, maybe I wait here the first week or two to just see how it really plays out, if it's going to change much. Obviously, I still think some teams are just going to score. Obviously, this is college football in that regard. Yeah, let's get to Navy. First year now with Newberry, no more triple option here. I mean, they are going to use it, but they're going to throw it a lot more. That's the big question mark. They ran it on Notre Dame well. And that game, I believe, was like the second to the last game of the year. They played late last year. But that game was 35-16, and Navy scored 16 late in the fourth, and Notre Dame didn't have any. So kind of they were beating them down. I think they do that, a little bit here. I always have trouble, just to touch on Notre Dame, as a 3-touchdown favorite. Normally it's at home. This is kind of semi-home. Over in Ireland for them in this one. So it's tough. You mentioned it. Navy gets lit up by, some good teams. So whether it's like Houston or some of these better quarterbacks would light them up in the past couple of years, the passing game. And we all know Hartman, I think he does that. And Notre Dame wasn't a team that had a ton of explosive plays, and they need to do that. And I think they get off to a good start. It's just if you want to lay the big points here. You mentioned it. The D-line, I think, is a little bit weak for Notre Dame, but the linebackers are all right. I like the secondary, with Morrison, Cam Hart. I think the safeties with Brown and Watts are solid. I think they'll be pretty good. And you mentioned the weapons that he'll have: Merriweather, Tyree, Thomas. I think they make some big plays. It's just, what do we get from Navy? Can they score? Because I think this Notre Dame defense is pretty good. So it's tough for me. I think I'm going to be off, as much as I want to gobble these points. Me, I want to take these points. And we'll see. It's just kind of hung here at 20.5. It's just like there. We'll see. Does it get over? Does it just stay here all week? That should be interesting.
Yeah, I think definitely you're going to see the weather really play a part here. But, one thing about Notre Dame, too, is you're definitely going to see, I think, with this group, more of a quarterback they have faith in. They're definitely going to air it out more. Again, the only thing that's really bothering me about pulling the trigger right now on this game going over the total is that weather forecast. We're going to wait till we see, closer to Saturday, because I don't think this total is going to move that much. It's basically, this total opened, I think, in the high 40s. There was some initial move to the over. Like, this was months ago. But for the last several weeks, it's really been staying pat in this 50-50.5 range. So I don't expect it to move a whole lot. So really, it's just, let's wait until closer to kickoff on Saturday, see how the weather's going to be in Dublin for this game. We move on to the next game here, UMass and New Mexico State. A very interesting matchup here because both of these teams played each other last year. It was a 10-point victory for New Mexico State last year when these two teams played, and now they meet again here to open the season on Saturday. New Mexico State, 7.5-point favorites in Las Cruces, home game for the Aggies. 44.5 the total. Let's give a shout out to Jerry Kill, man. Outstanding coaching job last year. New Mexico State was a perennial bottom feeder for years in FBS football prior to the arrival of Jerry Kill on the scene. And what a job he did with this program last year. Really amazing turnaround when you look at the fact that this team hasn't been necessarily been able to get any sort of high-level talent in the recruiting wars. And yet all of a sudden you see this New Mexico team get to 6 wins last year, get to a bowl game, and win their bowl game, the Quick Lane Bowl, in victorious fashion, played extremely well in it. That being said, their schedule was Cupcake City last year. It was as easy as it could get. I mean, it was set up perfectly for New Mexico State to have a better season. I still was a little surprised they won 6 games and got to a bowl game and won their bowl game, but there are definitely building blocks. And now I'm seeing how New Mexico State performed this year as far as the recruiting. The recruiting's getting better, across the board. They're getting faster players. They're getting, bigger, stronger, more talented players probably than they ever have in a long time. Like I'm seeing some of their transfers have come from Texas A&M, from Penn State. That's unheard of. That's really is in recent years that Mexico State's getting players from Power 5 schools to come there. Now, obviously, that's a lack of opportunity for some of these players with their previous destination, but nevertheless, it's impressive to see New Mexico State starting, to recruit some of these type of players. They bring back their dual threat quarterback, Diego Pavia. We remember him from last year. He was very, very good throwing the ball, running with the ball. He's got a great athleticism, so he does a great job of being able to keep opposing defenses off balance. And when you look at that New Mexico State team, that offense really did get better down the stretch. And what was impressive to me about the defense is the defense was just an absolute horrendous unit 2 years ago. But last year, under Jerry Kill, they improved in terms of points per game, 23.9. That's respectable. Their secondary was outstanding. Now, again, schedule related, not a ton of great passing teams and quarterbacks on their schedule compared to other teams, but still, you finish top 20 in pass defense, you're still pretty good. The run defense was solid enough. And when you look at that O-line from last year as well, New Mexico State did a very good job protecting the quarterback. It ranked in the top 25 last year as far as fewest sacks per game. So, and when you look at that, they have 4 of those starters on the O-line back, including their left tackle, including their center. So that's a really good sign for the New Mexico State offense coming into the season with their quarterback Pavia returning, with a pretty damn good receiver leading them. 9 of their top 10 receivers back. Cordell David is outstanding. He returns at wide receiver for them as well. This New Mexico State offense should be damn good. And the defense, as we saw last year, took improvement. So I like this team here. Now, what do you get from UMass? Don Brown, second-year head coach. We knew he was a DC for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan before he got this job at UMass. Don Brown, a great quote from him, but it's the same damn quote, C-Mac, I see from all the coaches in fall camp. I think we're a lot better this year, and I think we're going to be taking
You're going to hear that a lot. Yeah.
I mean, at what point do you believe this stuff, and what point is it just coach speak? Because if I had $1 to my name for every time in my 15 years capping this sport that I've heard a coach say, we're going to be better this year prior to the season, I'd be rich for sure right now. I'd be a lot richer. And then it turns out that, wait, they're saying it. And sometimes the coach is right, and they are better, and they have this breakthrough, much improved season. But a lot of times it's not correct, and they end up being the same old, bad team that they've been. And that's the question for me with UMass. Is this just coach speak, or does he really think they're better? What I don't like for UMass is how they're unsettled at the quarterback position going into this season. They've got a 4-man quarterback battle that the last I read is still ongoing. Don Brown hasn't announced a starting quarterback for this game. Their most experienced quarterback on the roster headed into this game is Brady Olson. He's been there for quite some time. And then after that, you've got a bunch of transfers that are battling for that spot as well. They've got a kid out of Georgia Tech that transferred to UMass in the offseason. He's in that battle for the quarterback spot. Talking about Fomanchan for the Fomachan. There you go. Tyson Fomachan for the transfer from Georgia Tech. He's in the battle.
I was struggling with that one.
Carlos Davis and Ahmad Haston. So there's basically 4 guys that are battling for the spot. So I don't know if I like that necessarily, because if it's this deep into camp, you're a week up, less than a week now from the first game of the season, and you don't know who your quarterback is going to be, and you're not settled on who it's going to be. No one stood out that much in fall camp that you can't name a starter yet. It does concern me a little bit for UMass. We know the defense was brutal last year, no question, and that's been a problem for UMass for years now, unable to get stops on the defensive side of the football. And you look at those defensive statistics from last year, they were absolutely horrendous for UMass. I'm not sure it's going to get any better. What's nice about UMass is they have improved in a lot of their position groups. There's no question about that. But again, the defense, you can run on them. They gave up almost 200 rushing yards per game last year. That's bad news because New Mexico State, Jerry Kill always wants to run the football. I mean, and Pavia is a guy that can run it. So that doesn't seem like a great matchup here for UMass. Put it this way, I have to see it before I believe it for UMass that they're going to be better. It's a tough road. I know it is the first game, so they have that time to get there. But, a road trip from Amherst, Massachusetts to Las Cruces, New Mexico is not easy, for your first game of the season here. So this is not a game I've bet yet, side or total. But if this thing drops a little further and I can get 7 or I can get better than that with New Mexico State, I would lay the points before I take UMass. I want no part of UMass right now until I see what they put out there on the field. Again, they haven't even made up their mind on their quarterback to start the season. And that's not exactly what I call a bet-on situation to begin a season for a very bad program that'll probably be one of the worst 5 programs in college football once again this season. So pass right now. The line falls a little further, though, and because the money has come in on UMass. People obviously thinking early on that there's just too many points to be laying with a team like New Mexico State. Maybe that's true. But I don't want UMass. And if it falls to 7 or better, I'll put a little New Mexico State Aggies in my pocket. That's still a place where I think it'll be tough to see UMass winning here for this team. What do you think here for this game? It'll be tough for UMass in this environment. What do you think here, Conor? UMass, New Mexico State.
Yeah, it will be. Quick to touch on this, how bad this UMass team was. Basically dead last or second to last point score. They didn't even score. I think it was 12.
Horrendous offensively too. Yep.
Yeah. And all the categories are just, bottom 10 in every category. It seemed like offensively. This was a game last year before New Mexico State kind of turned it around and ripped off, went like 6-1 ATS. They were at UMass who were down 10-0, and then just, it was 23-13 was the final. I think this game could be similar. One thing with UMass, they don't score a ton of points. And I know you mentioned the quarterback position, Davis, all these guys. I don't know who it's going to be. They weren't very good. I thought at times the defense was okay. They were horrible, like you mentioned, but they hung around. We know Don Brown, that's what he wants to do, is a solid defense. And I think they could be okay here. New Mexico State, you mentioned Jerry Kill, very surprising. I think they're right here again. I think they could win 6 games. And this has to be a win here early. The quarterback was great, like you talked about there. I loved him towards the end of the year. ATS. This game here, I want to lay it, with it. I don't love laying 8 with New Mexico State. It is very tough. Someone mentioned in the chat was our guy's star child. Maybe this is a wait a little bit, a live bet situation just to see. This is the first week. Technically, we're week 0, but first game. But I think New Mexico State is better, and in the end, will pull away. And this is another one with the clock going here. We have a low total. UMass was a great team to the under last year. I think they were 7-3 or 8-4, something like that. Man, can they get a couple touchdowns, this UMass team? That would be a big turnaround. I don't know if they can. I think it'll be ugly. So right now, I haven't betted either. I don't love that 8. That's the whole problem. But I lean New Mexico State.
All right, 2 solid leans here for Conor Mack and yours truly with New Mexico State. The total seems to be in a good spot because I kind of have it in my mind. This could be something like, I don't know, 28 to 10 or something like that, or 24 to 10, 20, even 21. New Mexico State will get into the 20s. I have no idea what we're going to get from UMass because this was a wretched offensive football team last year. They really were, and they have been so unsettled at quarterback here in camp that they've now been in fall camp for weeks, and Don Brown hasn't even stated publicly who his starting quarterback is going to be. That tells me nobody is separating themselves. That's what I think anyway when I see that.
Yeah. It's pretty low, but if this is a few points higher, which I don't think it gets, like if this gets to 46.5, I mean, I'd start maybe looking at the under. And this is moving towards the over a little bit. It was 42.5 just a few days ago, right?
Yeah, it did. There was a big move. I think it was a week or so ago that I saw the total shoot up from 42.5 to 44.5. So there has been some movement here towards this game going over the total. And look, I think New Mexico State will have some offensive success. They're going to be very good offensively. They were good offensively down the stretch last year, and they got the quarterback back. They've got a good running back.
Good running back. Yeah.
All the receivers are back. The O-line's got the 4 starters back, including, left tackle, which is the big position that you want to see.
They need to clean up a little bit penalties. New Mexico State, they kind of were sloppy, but a game like this early, low penalties, I think they'll be good here.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, we move on to a conference game in week 0. You don't see this every day. Florida International, Louisiana Tech, Conference USA matchup here between these two teams. We've got Louisiana Tech, 11-point favorites, 58.5 the total here. Ruston, Louisiana, of course, the home of this game. Louisiana Tech, they've taken a lot of money. Let me just put it this way. Let me state where this opened, because this line started as low as, I believe, 6 or no, 9.5. It was 9.5, and we've seen it gone up to 10, 11 now in most spots. So there's been some opinion here on Louisiana Tech, and I do think this is going to be an improved team. No question about that. We're going to see the Louisiana Tech squad have a pretty solid season this year. But are you ready in the first game of the season, in what's a conference game, to lay this kind of a price with the Bulldogs here in the opener? That ends up being the question. Sonny Cumbie back for his second year now as the head coach of the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs. And the big change here for them is obviously bringing in the former Boise State quarterback via the transfer portal in the offseason, Hank Bachmeier, who is now here as the starting quarterback for Louisiana Tech. And guy's got all the tools and all the abilities, but it just didn't pan out for him at Boise State, and we just did not see that development. We did not see that improvement with him at Boise State, to the point where he lost his job essentially last year because he just got off to a dreadful start. And the offense at Boise State got off to a dreadful start, and they ended up firing their offensive coordinator early in the season because of it. And the writing was on the wall at that point. They made the quarterback change to Green, and the rest was history there at Boise State. And that pretty much left Hank Bachmeier out of a starting spot. And obviously now with college football, these kids lack patience. They're not willing to work at the school they're at, to get better. I've lost my starting job. I got to transfer out and go somewhere where I can start immediately. I mean, that's the world we're living in right now. Why do you think JT Daniels now is on his 6th or 7th football team? It's because he gets kicked around now to different teams, and he wants to start. He doesn't want to be holding a clipboard here in college football. So it's just the world we live in, impatience now. These guys want to start, and if they don't start at the place they're at, they're going to get out and try to go somewhere where they can get that start. And that's what Bachmeier's done here at Louisiana Tech. So be interesting to see how it'll work out, because we know he didn't obviously live up to expectations at Boise State. He does have a lot of experience. He put 4 seasons there, at Boise State. A lot of starts under his belt. So that is something. Now it's going to be, that air raid offense that Sonny Cumbie has basically employed on that side of the ball throughout his coaching tenure, not only as a head coach, but an OC as well. And it'll be interesting to see, in terms of receivers, there's a lot coming back for this football team. Smoke Harris, should be an outstanding wide receiver for them this season. Marquise Crosby, a very solid running back as well for them coming into this season. And it'll be interesting to see. They really added a very good player as well at the running back spot from Baylor, Craig Williams. This guy extremely fast. And it'll be interesting to see how Sonny Cumbie and the offensive coordinators here, Jake Brown, Scott Parr, how they use him in the offense. A lot of returning experience on the offensive line for Louisiana Tech coming into this season. They had some issues last year in terms of protecting the quarterback. And when you look at the fact that from all indications, this is actually a team that wants to speed up their tempo even more on offense this year, Louisiana Tech. So on an offensive line that, even though they had some issues last year, with the experience returning, they should be better equipped to deal with that. Last year, the defense was just really, really horrendous. 37 points per game allowed, 128 in the country, Louisiana Tech scoring defense. And especially against the run, they were absolutely brutal, this team. 130, giving up 243 rushing yards per game last year. So I definitely think that is obviously they've got to improve in that run defense this year. They didn't get into the backfield last year. They didn't blow up plays at the line of scrimmage with that defensive line. And how much improvement can they make this year? They're not very deep on the defensive line. That would be an issue, an area that does concern me, I should say, coming into this season. The linebacker, they really went to the transfer portal heavy there. The secondary actually looks pretty good. If you're going to pick a strength on the defense for La Tech, it's probably going to be that secondary. There's a lot coming back. They've got a senior corner, Cecil Singleton, as well as a really, really good Willie Roberts. They've got some experience back there. So they could be good in the secondary, which is important because, so many teams like to throw the ball now. But there are enough concerns with the defensive line and other areas. You got to lay double digits with them. It's a bit of a high number for me. The question is FIU. FIU was a bottom feeder, 2-3 years ago. And even last year, it was a really, really tough start to the season. But I'll be honest, C-Mac, I like their head coach, Mike McIntyre. I've liked him quite a bit in his college football coaching career because we have seen some evidence of him being able, to improve a football program. Now he's in year 2. This team somehow won 4 games last year. 4-8 they went. And there were some ugly results at times. They lost to Texas State in week 2. It was a brutal loss, 73-0. This is obviously a program that it's going to need time you're going to need to give Mike McIntyre time to get them back to a level of, at least to be decent here. And last year they did have some struggles down the stretch. North Texas, Florida Atlantic, UTEP, the injuries mounted. They didn't have a ton of depth. That definitely was a concern. But when I look at FIU this year, I think you could see this FIU team improve. I mean, I like that coming into the year, their quarterback situation looks to be fairly settled. And it looks like they're going to turn to Grayson James, who got a lot of starts under his belt last year. And he was practicing as of just this past weekend, Conor, with the first team offense. So it kind of tells me that they're going in that direction where Grayson James probably will be the starter. He got almost 2,000 passing yards last year. Now, 11 touchdowns, 11 interceptions is not going to cut it. He's got to improve in that TD-INT ratio. You can't have that. But again, year 2 for him, he should be a little bit better, as far as the quarterback, knowing the offense a little bit going into this game. The question is going to be, with this FIU squad, we know at times that defense was just, absolutely wretched and absolutely awful. I mean, they gave up 37 points per game. They were torched through the air. They weren't exactly great stopping the run, giving up 190 rushing yards per game. And like I said, the offense at times was anemic, but I do think there's potential there. James has some athleticism, some mobility. If you look at the offensive line for FIU coming into this season, it's much better on paper compared to last year, in my opinion. And when you look at it, they've got Lindell Hudson Jr. And a couple of O-lines pieces that are going to help make this team, I think, better up front in terms of run blocking, pass protection. The offensive line was dreadful last year, but I do think there's going to be improvement there along that offensive line. Again, we've got Chris Mitchell at wide receiver, some options there. Defensive line, pass rush was just non-existent for a lot of last year, just too much time given to opposing quarterbacks to make plays. That's going to have to improve, but they also feel that there are going to be some pieces that are going to make this better. They went to the transfer portal, and actually, when you look at it, they got a couple of pieces that are not so bad for that defensive line to improve. Linebacker should be pretty good. I think it's probably the best part of the defense. The secondary, last year they had their issues stopping the pass, but you look at it, they've got the experience returning, 3 of their starters back there. It definitely should help for Florida International coming into the year. I am buying into this team being better, and I do think because 2 years ago they were one of the worst programs. Last year they were still pretty bad, even though they got to 4 wins, which is still pretty impressive considering how bad they were 2 years ago. And I buy into this coach being a good enough coach where he's going to at least continue that progression of improvement for this program this year. I'll be honest, I'm tempted to take 11 here with FIU. I know this is still a program that's got a lot of ground to make up in terms of closing the gap between them and some of these other programs because they were historically bad 2 years ago. But I like Mike McIntyre. I like what he's doing. I like that down the stretch we saw some improvements. I think overall better at a lot of different position groups coming into this season. And there's still enough question marks about Louisiana Tech's defense in particular that I don't want to lay double digits. I am very interested in this double-digit road underdog. In a conference game, first game of the year, I'm definitely interested in plus 11 or so with FIU. I also think this is a high-scoring affair. As long as the weather holds up in Ruston, we should see some points in this game. 58.5, I would definitely look at playing this game up and over the total. What do you think here, Conor Mack, with FIU, La Tech?
Yeah, this was FIU, as bad as they were last year. This is the game they look the best. I know it went to OT, but they beat La Tech. They scored 42. That was a season high. You mentioned the wins they had. It was those wins, they were dogs, not only one outright covered, because the other games they lost, they just got blown out. It seemed like they weren't competitive at all. I think Middle Tennessee was a tight game. They lost by 5, but other than that, I mean, these scores were just ugly. Like you talked about, they just haven't been good in Conference USA. And 2 of those wins, the last 20, they've lost. They've been a bad road team. That scares me a little bit. 2-16, the last 18 on the road. Grayson James had his best game, against this team last year, 3 TDs. And the one thing here is just a horrible defense like La Tech was. I think Grayson James can kind of throw it around on them a bit. One thing with La Tech you talked about, they don't bring any pressure. Both these teams don't. Both the quarterbacks should be able to stand in the pocket and throw it around. I thought the total was a little bit high, but how can you not? One thing with La Tech, they were basically an automatic over team last year. They just cashed consistently, game in, game out. I'm sure you remember that, but Ben, I'm sure you were on some of their overs with La Tech. So I think Grayson James could be all right. Like you talked about, 1,900 yards, 11 TDs, 11 picks. I think he could be a little bit better. Just everything struggles. But I like the 11 points here. I'm leaning that way as well. I do think La Tech is better. You mentioned one thing, the linebackers are okay. The secondary is a little bit better. But if you get no pressure, man, that's not good. And that's kind of how it was last year in this one. So in the end, I'm looking at the points as well. I can't get over, the pass and how bad they were on the road and at times where they just get blown out. Or it seems like if they're going to be in this game, it's going to be close. They could maybe take this money line a little bit with FIU. And it's just, I think there's points, just whether you want to get here on the over.
And I think, too, a lot of the reason, too, Louisiana Tech, Florida International's had some struggles the last few years, although I think last year we did see tangible improvement. And again, and you mentioned it, the performance against Louisiana Tech was really good. And there's people that see, Hank Bachmeier, Boise State transfer, can come in here and just rip it up. Well, we got to see. It's not exactly like he played great there, at Boise State. There's a reason why he's at Louisiana Tech right now, all right, because he didn't play well enough at Boise State to keep his job. That's why. And the struggles also led to his OC getting gassed early last season as well at Boise. So keep that in mind. Are we really sold on it's just Hank Bachmeier is going to light up Conference USA this season? Now he could, because there are some really bad defenses in this conference historically. But nevertheless, it's going to be interesting to see what we get here. And there's one thing I wanted to mention too about UMass, and I forgot to. UMass was trying like crazy because this being a Conference USA game reminded me to mention this about UMass. UMass was trying like crazy. They were fucking going overboard to try to get to Conference USA because they are an independent right now. They're not affiliated with any conference. And Conference USA told them flat out, we don't want you. They opted to go to Sam Houston State and Jacksonville State, who are 2 new FCS teams coming into FBS with Conference USA this year, and said, we want these teams in our conference. We don't want you. We don't want UMass. So that tells you the state of UMass Minutemen football program right now. Conference USA, which you could make a damn good case, by the way, C-Mac, that Conference USA was maybe the worst Group of 5 conference last year in college football, because it used to be the Sun Belt. Sun Belt might be one of the best, if not the best Group of 5 conference now in college football. When you look at some of those performances last year by those teams, Coastal Carolina pulling off big upsets, South Alabama almost beating UCLA last year. Sun Belt's come a long way.
South Alabama, I like them again. I took their win total over. A little thing there.
I agree with that. They're going to be really good against South Alabama. That conference is really good. And CUSA has really declined in recent years. And they still didn't want UMass. So it tells you where UMass is right now. That's for sure. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Hit that like button. Come on, let's run it up here. 82 live viewers. Hit that like button. We appreciate it. We got 4 games to go. We move on to San Jose State and USC. next up here. And obviously, as you would expect, huge favorites here, the Trojans in the Coliseum, 30-point home favorites, 64.5 being the total in this one. Look, this offense is going to be ridiculously good, to nobody's surprise. We know that what they bring back on this offense coming into this season here, it's going to be Caleb Williams, who's just last year was just an incredible season for him, can do it all, can make all the throws, can stand in the pocket and throw, can throw on the run. And we know what kind of a dangerous player he can be as far as taking off and running with the football with his athleticism as well. So just the complete package. And we know what he was able to do down the stretch last year, incredible performances. And they needed to be really, really strong on offense. Third in the country in scoring, 41 points per game, third passing yards per game, 335 yards per game through the air for this Trojans team last year. And then rushing, offense, not nearly as good, but I think when you look at this year's team, there's going to be a team that's going to try to be able to be better in terms of running the football. Now, Travis Dye, of course, is gone now to the NFL. But when you look at it, Marshawn Lloyd, they bring him in from South Carolina. Austin Jones still there. So there's still going to be some options here as far as running the football is concerned. I mean, as far as this USC receiving core that Caleb Williams has to work with, it's still pretty stacked. Even after the guy that transferred from Pitt, Jordan Addison, moved on, they've still got a ton of weapons here for Caleb Williams. It's going to be fun to watch Brendan Rice. It's going to be fun to watch Dorian Singer, who transfers over from Arizona. I mean, they're certainly going to have just a ton of weapons. Mario Williams back once again. It's just going to be an absolutely fun offense to watch again. And Lincoln Riley's got basically all the tools at his disposal here for this team to be just an absolutely sick, dynamic, explosive offense. And San Jose State's going to have to deal with them. Now, the offensive line, it's going to be interesting here for them coming into the season because there's some turnover there along the offensive line. So it's going to be, that's going to be an area to watch moving forward. Brett Nielsen, Andrew Voorhees, couple of the starters gone from last year. Will they be able to replace those guys adequately? Probably, because when you talk about a school like USC, when you lose good players, you're usually able to plug and play and reload and still be pretty solid. And again, when you're playing a team like San Jose State where you're just outmanned in the line of scrimmage, it's not going to show up, any kind of, roster personnel turnover early in the season when you're playing this kind of opponent. If you're playing like, Oregon, or, one of the better teams in the Pac-12, Utah, early in the season, that's different. But you're playing San Jose State, you're probably going to be able to, gradually meld this offensive line to what you want it to be. Obviously, look, last year, defense wasn't really good enough, and it's what held them back. But you look at it, the defensive line, they got Georgia and A&M, transfers from those two schools to really stabilize and improve this D-line coming into this new season. So they really should be better up front, better against the run, better in terms of pass rush on opposing quarterbacks. This guy, watch out for him from Texas A&M. He's going to be probably a sack master for them. Lucas here from Texas A&M. Watch out for him. He could really be strong. Anthony Lucas, in terms of getting that pressure that sometimes they lacked from the pass rush last season. The linebacker spot, there's a little bit of inexperience there compared to last year, but they're going to be helped by, they got a good transfer out of Oklahoma State, Mason Cobb, to help them out. Secondary, this year should be a group where there's definitely some options. There's a lot of players that have gotten some meaningful playing time in the past, so they should be fine there. So the defense definitely should improve for this USC team. Can it improve enough that it puts San Jose State in a spot where they're going to have a really tough time here moving the football? That's going to end up being the big question. I thought, Conor, that San Jose State was going to be a program that was starting to show signs of life, turn it around, and they had that great 2020 season, that COVID season where they went to the Mountain West Championship game. It was a terrific season for San Jose State, but you're starting to think maybe it was just a product of a crazy time of year where, COVID season and everything was, all over the map and schedules were different. And because since that season, it's been they haven't been able to sustain it. They've kind of went backward. And I like Brent Brennan. Don't get me wrong, but it's just been tough for him to get this team to that upper trajectory. That being said, 7-5 last year, not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. The offense last year was okay, not great. The defense actually wasn't too bad. They bring in Siobhan Cordero now from Hawaii now, end up going to be their new starting quarterback here. Played 4 seasons there. And, of course, when you look at San Jose State, it's going to be nice that he's at least going to have their quarterback here, Brennan and Cordero, that's very experienced. There's a lot of good receivers on this team, which is good. Elijah Cooks or Justin Lockhart, Charles Ross, Miller. They're all very, very experienced on this group. That's good to see. The key is going to be on defense here. They've lost a lot on the defensive line. They've lost a lot as well at linebacker. And that worries me against USC here in this opener. You already are up against it, and now you've lost a lot of your production along the defensive line. You've lost a lot of your production in the linebacking core. And, man, does that worry me when you're playing USC here in this first game of the season, and when you're playing what's probably going to end up being one of the elite and one of the absolute best offenses in college football this season. So, when it's all said and done here, it's a tough ask for San Jose State. This is about as tough as you could ask for as far as this opener is concerned. I would probably look at I just don't know for the over if San Jose State's going to score enough to help that game get over 64.5. You're going to have to probably get USC to 48 or 50 points, 52, and hope you can get 14 from San Jose State or something like that. That's what it's going to take. I would feel if I'm going to bet this thing, because I'd be scared to bet the under, because I think USC can score on almost every possession, honestly, if they want to, if they avoid penalties, if they avoid turnovers. They have that potential in this game. The question is going to be, what can San Jose State do offensively? What I do like is Cordero's got a ton of experience, played a lot of games. Now, he hasn't played many, teams in the caliber of USC, because you're in the Mountain West, but I think San Jose State can chip in a little bit. I definitely have this game circled as potentially playing over 64.5. USC plays up tempo. They're obviously going to be throwing the ball quite a bit. We've seen that here with this USC squad, and they don't mind it. And they've certainly got the quarterback to do that coming into this season once again. And Caleb Williams is definitely a surefire Heisman candidate. But definitely, the question is going to be, what can San Jose State do offensively? I would probably lean over, or even a USC team total, just in case, for those people that may be worried about what San Jose State does offensively in this game. Because I just don't think that defense is going to be – I think that defense is going to be powerless, in my opinion, to stop USC. Because if you're weak on the D-line and up front in the front seven, that's definitely not what you want to see here against a team like an offense like the Trojans. What do you think here, C-Max, San Jose State, USC?
Yeah, on the total, SC was over machine. 11 of the 14 games went over the 64 number, and I think it can too. You mentioned maybe look at their team total. San Jose, you mentioned the problem is their defense. I don't know how they get some stops against Caleb Williams and SC. I like Cordero. He's always been very good. I mean, another all right year, 3,200 yards, 23 TDs. And I think he can move it on this SC defense. All that's being preached, we know how good Williams and this offense is and the weapons they have, is Lincoln Riley. Defense, all spring. The scrimmage, everything I read. But I don't know if there's really a change with him at all. I don't know if they're going to be any better. I think the offense, is a playoff type team, and the defense is middle of the pack. And last year, both teams were very good. San Jose State, too, with turnovers allowed and turnovers forced, they were good. But SC, turnovers allowed, 6, number 1, and forced turnovers, remember all those they got was 26. Does that continue? Getting all those turnovers, that kind of helped them out last year because they're going to need it. They do have some studs, on the DA line, obviously 5-star recruits. Kalen Bullock, very good safety. Could be an all-American type guy. But yeah, this is just a ton of points. I think both teams score. I need a little bit more with San Jose. I think they can put it, though. I like Cordero. As long as he doesn't throw 3 picks and have this awful, because that can happen. I think if you like SC, maybe look first half, they just jump all over him, if you want to lay this first half with SC. They should have 3 or 4 touchdowns. So, And in the end, I do think it gets over because I just don't trust SC's defense. I got to see it though. Week 0 here.
Yeah, I think we all are in agreement. I think probably there's a lot of people in the chat that think, USC is going to be able to pop for 40s, if not 50, in this game against this San Jose State defense. It's all going to be, this total is going to hinge upon how much production and how much scoring do you get from San Jose State. And like I say, I think there's a puncher's chance. And look, USC's defense looks to be a little bit better this year, but it was not a great defense last year. I still have visions of that team getting ripped apart in the bowl game by Tulane last year, where Michael Pratt and that great Green Wave offense was just up and down the field, especially in the second half against USC. So that's still the area where you could get a little bit concerned about USC here coming into the new season. All right, let's go to Ohio and San Diego State now. A very interesting MAC versus Mountain West matchup here. We've got San Diego State. Actually, they were 3-point favorites, now down to 2.5. So Ohio money, it just continues to roll in here. San Diego State 2.5-point favorites, 49 being the total in this game. This is actually one of the first week 0 bets I made about a couple of weeks ago, or not more than that. It was about a month ago. Because I got Ohio at plus 4.5. It was quite some time ago. But I said, I like Ohio. They're going to be one of the best teams in the MAC again this year. Curtis Rourke looks like he's a go, by the way, for this game. And that's significant.
That's all I needed to know. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's also explaining why there's probably more money pouring in, because it sure looks to me that the concern was after getting injured last year, CJ Harris had to take over at the quarterback spot, that Curtis Rourke's healthy. He's been in fall camp. Remember, he had that ACL tear last November. But he's been in camp for a while now. It was just a question of would he be named the starting quarterback, and he will. And look, Nathan Rourke was outstanding at Ohio, and Nathan Rourke was incredible last year in the CFL with the BC Lions, and now we're seeing him light it up albeit preseason right now with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL. Hell of a quarterback. There's people that think Curtis Rourke is every bit as good and might even be better, than Nathan Rourke, his older brother, who also played here. These Canadian, they're both Canadian. It's a Canadian quarterback brotherhood here, the Rourkes, Nathan and
they call it Maple Missile. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I love it. CMAC, great name. Love it. Maple Missile. I think we're gonna have to go with that here for both of them, to be quite honest, Rourke. Nathan and Curtis. But no, look, the numbers last year were sick before he got injured last year for Curtis Rourke. 3,200 passing yards. How about this ratio, TD to INT? 25 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Is that any good? I'd say so. So obviously he's got all the tools, right? Throw it, run it, dual threat. But I think his arm, to be honest with you, Nathan was more of a run-heavy quarterback when he played at Ohio. Curtis, I think, is more of a guy that's got that cannon arm at his disposal here for Ohio. Obviously, they should be fine with him at quarterback. And when you look at the rest of this Ohio Bobcats team, what's funny is last year I didn't think Ohio was going to be that great because Frank Solich retired. We had some changes that were taking place with the program, but they definitely proved me wrong because Ohio had a very good season overall, got to the MAC championship game before losing to Toledo. And remember, they had to play CJ Harris at quarterback in that MAC championship game against Toledo. Due to injury last year. But you look at Ohio, I think there's a lot to like. They're going to be very dynamic on the offensive side of the football, which is really good to see. The question is going to be defensively. And I think when you look at Ohio and the potential that they do have on the defensive side of the football for improvement, that's going to be good for them. I think they're definitely going to be able to I think they're going to struggle against some really good offenses. And last year they had their issues on the defensive side of the football. Make no mistake about it. But I think when you look at this team, they're going to be able to do they're going to improve defensively, first of all. And second of all, they're going to be able to shut down or at least neutralize some less potent, less explosive offenses that they end up facing on their schedule. And I am confident in saying that I'm willing to put San Diego State's offense in that category of lesser explosive offenses. And part of the reason why I liked Ohio plus the points, and I would still go that way, even though the number's not as good, is because I just don't like what I'm seeing out of San Diego State program-wise right now. Rocky Long, every year when he coached this team years ago, they were always one of the better programs in the Mountain West. And I didn't like the Brady Hoke hire the moment it happened. And Brady Hoke, slowly but surely, you've seen this program just slip back and step back year after year after year. And I no longer consider San Diego State like a true, behemoth now in the Mountain West, compared to where they've been in the past. They're going to go back to Jalen Maiden, it looks like, at quarterback, who had his, I guess you could say, maiden voyage last year at the quarterback spot, his first year for this team. And they tried to show some more explosiveness, and they've always been just so predictable. Run the football. It's, easy to defend. It's predictable. They've basically been running their offense like it's still in the 1980s, this San Diego State program. They tried to get some more explosiveness with Jalen Maiden last year, and he's a good athlete. He can run with it a little bit. He's got some athleticism, and he's got good size, but his arm is just all over the map. I mean, he's just missing wide open throws just way too many times last year from what I saw. His accuracy in the pocket is going to really have to improve, if he's going to take that step as a passing quarterback here for this San Diego State team coming into the season. But I see an Ohio team that's going to be really good. I see a San Diego State team that, they've taken their steps back, as a program here these last few years. And I think you put the combination of those two together, and I think this is a very live underdog, and it's a very winnable football game for, I think, what will end up being a very good Ohio Bobcats team with a healthy Curtis Rourke. Sam Wiglusz, the receivers, back. You look at on the defensive side of the football where the issues were last year for Ohio, that's really where they had their problems, was stopping teams. But there's a lot to like in terms of what they're going to bring back here as far as the defensive side of the football coming into this season. So there's definitely a lot to like. They've got great tight ends too. Will Kaczmarek, Tyler Foster. The run game, is always going to be pretty strong. The offensive line's really good once again coming into this season as well for Ohio. So there's a lot to like. And the offense is going to be able to really, really do some significant things this year on that side of the ball. They have a ton of experience in the secondary. That helps. On the defensive line coming into this season, I think they're going to be improved and up front there, and a better ability to take away the run, because that was the better part of that defense, a defense that wasn't great last year, but the strength of it was stopping the run. And I'll tell you this right now, that's always the blueprint to success, play San Diego State. You stop their run, you stop San Diego State. You stop them from running the football, you're going to stop them from doing anything really on offense. So I think it's a team that can go in there and win. I certainly liked it a lot at plus 4.5. It's down to 2.5 now. I still like it. I think I like it enough to still bet it, even if you didn't get the best of the number. I think they're very capable of winning this football game, Ohio, in their season opener. What do you think here, C-Mac? Ohio, San Diego State.
Do you have anything on the total?
You're going to get a lot of running from Ohio. I know San Diego State wants to throw it a bit more this year, but I'm going to need to see them actually live up to what they're saying before I believe it, because year in and year out, I see the same shit from this team. Too predictable. Run on first down, run on second down, and you're behind the chains, and you get nothing accomplished. I mean, we've seen that far too much from the Aztecs here over the years. This is definitely one where I could see it being under potentially in this game, 49.5. But keep in mind, too, with the San Diego State team, this defense wasn't as good. We remember this team for being such a good defensive football team for years. That was not the
more
case.
Overs.
Yes, and last year we saw them kind of transition and start to go over the total, especially when Maiden took over at quarterback. So I think it's a really tricky total. I lean under, but it's not at all a total I'm probably betting here. I'm sticking to just the side.
Yeah, I think it's tricky, too. It seems like, though, Ohio, if they're in this, and that's what I want, is because I just want Curtis Rourke here, and I think he's all a go. He'll be healed up because I think he can move it on them. I just don't know if it gets over, because one problem with Ohio, and by the way, cash cow for me last year, I'm sure you too, but man, I mean, they were like 9-1, something like that down the stretch. ATS. Even after you got hurt, Harris, was okay.
Yeah, they were still cashing some tickets and covering point spreads with Harris after.
Even with Harris in there. But yeah, they were very, very good. I worry about their defense, because even just a San Diego State team that I think is very average, middle of the road. I think can score points on Ohio in this game. And I think it'll be close. I thought the points, over the field goal were good to have because I see this one down to the wire. In the end, I want the better quarterback. San Diego State, though, I did watch some of their spring game. He looked pretty good. The lefty, he can run around. They have some weapons. They seem to reload. I just didn't like the hire too with Hoke. They seem like a 6-6 team this year. The defense that you talked about has slipped a little bit, and I think Rourke could take advantage of that. And I think this game's close. I think you got to go Ohio or pass in a close one. Years past, you just got to look at it. They've always owned, kind of MAC teams, San Diego State. But like you talked about, this, a little bit, they've slipped the last couple of years. And what do we get week 0? A little bit slower, feel each other out. Teams are all right. Tackling is always a big issue in some of these games, with these teams. So that's another one too, that maybe waiting to get some of these games live to bet, a little bit in week 0. Because we'll be watching basically all of them. It's not like we're missing, because once after this week, they're all out, multiple games at every time slot.
Yeah, it'll be. Can Jalen Maiden improve as a passer? We know he's got athleticism, mobility. And by the way, San Diego State does have a new offensive coordinator. It's a guy that played there at quarterback years and years ago. Ryan Lindley, remember that name? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Lindley is the new offensive coordinator for San Diego State, and he was the guy that was saying they do want to try to at least put the ball in the air more than they have in recent years. That's the mission statement, if you will, from Lindley. But again, are we going to, first of all, is this guy accurate enough to make it work? That's my biggest concern about, trying to throw the ball more. I agree with it. You can't just be 1980s thinking anymore. I know this was always been a run first team on offense for years, but you just can't run it on first down, run it on second down, and be that predictable anymore and expect to be a successful offense in 2023. You just can't do it that way.
Yeah.
So I applaud that they want to try to be a little bit more vertical and balance out at least a little bit more of the run to pass ratio on this team offensively. But again, do they have the quarterback as far as accuracy is concerned, to make it work? All right, before we get to our last two games, we want to mention the Cappers contest. That is right around the corner. Again, just a few weeks away. There he is, the winner of the contest. You see him on Peter Loshak. Outstanding job by him. Pistol Pete, and he was a pistol, hotter than a pistol last year in the Cappers contest. The big reason why I was runner-up. Couldn't get past Mr. Peter Loshak last year. So, and I'll be in it, of course. Second place finish for yours truly last year. $100 entry fee. You make 5 NFL picks each and every week, obviously against the spread at the lines that are provided. And that's all it takes. So $100 entry fee. You sign up at pubsportsradio.com. The survivor pool as well. And definitely get involved with that. Again, pubsportsradio.com, $100 entry fee, 1 entry per person, 18 years of age or older to enter that. So make sure you get involved with that. The Survivor contest, it's a great competition as far as strategy is concerned, if you're going to hope to win one of those things. So make sure you get involved, the Survivor pool and the Pub Sports Radio Cappers contest. Sign up now if you haven't already at pubsports.com and get involved. And it's fun. And there's money on the line. And good money to be won with both of those. So make sure you get involved with both of those great contests. All right, we got 2 games to go, and this is a great game to talk about because we have a new entry into FBS football here, making the graduating, I guess you could say, graduating from FCS to Conference USA, Jacksonville State, the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State taking on the UTEP Miners. We've got pretty much a pick 'em here. And it's basically been around this pick'em range all summer. We've got UTEP right now, 1-point road favorites in most spots. The total, it's actually gone up a little, 52.5. It's up to 53, 54 right now in a lot of spots. When you look at UTEP, first thing that you have to point out is I think Dana Dimel's done a nice job. Here's another type of a situation where, kind of like what we talked about earlier with Jerry Kill, he brought New Mexico State into a realm of success that last year that they had not seen in a long, long time. And you could say that about what Dana Dimmel's done here at UTEP. This was a program that was just a terrible way. I remember Mike Price was the coach of this team years and years ago. Oh, they turned into one of the worst teams in college football under his watch. But to see what Dana Dimmel's done, I can't believe he's already entering his 6th season here in El Paso. But you look at this group. Last year was kind of a step back. I mean, 2 years ago, they had a pretty good season, only 5-7 last year. But coming into this season, there's things to like, I think, about UTEP, starting with the fact that they bring back a guy that's probably going to be one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the entire country, and Gavin Hardison. Gavin Hardison has been here for a very long time now at UTEP. A lot of experience under his belt. That's definitely something that's going to be significant. You got stability now because it's a 6th-year head coach. It's 3rd-year offensive and defensive coordinators for this UTEP team as well. You like to see that cohesion, continuity with the coaching staff coming into this new season. And when you look at what Gavin Hardison, the quarterback, is going to have to work with at his disposal, he's going to have a lot at his disposal. He's going to have one of the best running backs, and certainly in this conference, in Deion Hankins, who's an excellent running back for the Miners. He's returning this year for this football team, and that's significant. The leading receiver as well is also back for them, which is great to see for this UTEP Miners squad. Like, they're definitely going to have some weapons. I like what I see. This offense kind of maybe took a small step back last year, but with Hardison back in the fold at the quarterback spot, with 4 starters back on the O-line, Deion Hankins back at running back, you've got Tyron Smith, a dynamic receiver, leading you there in that group. You're going to be able to move the football. Like, they got all the pieces. They've got an experienced quarterback with tons of starts under his belt, a very good O-line, a great running back, weapons at receiver. They're going to be able to move the football, and I think they'll move the football here in this game against Jacksonville State. You transition to UTEP defensively here in this game. They actually did have a pretty solid defense last year, top 50 defense and against the run and the pass last year. That being said, when you look at this year's defense, there is going to be, the defensive line actually looks like could be pretty sturdy for them last year. The linebacking core definitely suffered some attrition from graduation losses and transfer portal losses in the offseason. The secondary, when you look at it, this year also has some shuffling going on in the back end. So up front, they're pretty good on defense, but you do worry a little bit, at least, about the linebacking core and the secondary. As far as Jacksonville State, obviously a new entry into college football this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how that transition goes. I'll bring up a recent example, C-Mac, and these aren't automatically, whoa, this team's going to FBS football and from the FCS ranks, let's bet against them. It's going to take them a while to, become acclimated, and it's going to take them a while to get comfortable and play well in their new surroundings. Well, if you bet against James Madison last year, you had your head caved in and your bankroll was crushed. If you took that mindset and that thought process with James Madison last year, you didn't do well. They clearly assimilated themselves very well to FBS football in their first year. So it's really a case-by-case basis. You can't just say, okay, it's a team that's coming to the FBS, they're going to struggle. I think you got to see it play out. And for Jacksonville State, an old name that people will recognize in college football is their head coach, and it's his 2nd year there, Rich Rodriguez. Good old Rich Rod, back in the consciousness of FBS football again. We know where he's been in the past. Arizona, obviously the tenure at Michigan that didn't pan out when he was head coach there. Denard Robinson was his quarterback. Shoelace, right? I still remember those days at Michigan, which didn't go well. And then, of course, before that, though, the area where he did get things done was West Virginia, a long time before that as head coach. But now he's back in the FCS, and when you see it's Rich Rod as head coach, you know what kind of offense it's going to be. It's going to be an up-tempo, run-oriented spread offense. It's always what he's done throughout his coaching career, and it's going to be more of the same here at Jacksonville State this season. They do have a very, very interesting starting quarterback to monitor this year, Zion Webb. Okay, it's a 7th year of eligibility for him. He's actually an extremely experienced quarterback. He's a dual threat. He's got incredible open field speed. And you better keep your eye on him if you're UTEP's defense, and make sure you always have someone spying him at all times, because he can really run with the ball. He had over 1,700 passing yards last year, 10 touchdowns, 650 rushing yards. So this is a pretty solid quarterback that Jacksonville State has, and it'll be interesting to see how he fares here against this, last year at least was a pretty good UTEP defense. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. We know they're going to play with some tempo coming into this season. When you look on the defensive side of the football, this is a defense that last year, they gave up almost 23 points per game. And keep in mind, this was an FCS schedule for Jacksonville State last year. It's going to be a lot more difficult for them, I think, this season as far as the defensive side of the football is concerned. There is some turnover a little bit in the secondary coming into this season. That's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. But, it's a defense last year that was okay, but not great. And now they got to play this first game of the season, albeit they're the home team here. But they got to play a UTEP offense I think is going to be pretty solid this year with great quarterback. As we mentioned, the skill positions are set. The O-line's experienced with 4 starters back, should be strong. And the one thing about Jacksonville State that bothers me as well, C-Mac, is last year they couldn't stop the run. An FCS schedule, keep this in mind, Jacksonville State gave up 174 rushing yards per game last year. That is not good against a team like UTEP that's going to be a run-first offense with Deion Hankins, who's an outstanding running back. I think UTEP's going to score their points here. I do. And I think Jacksonville State's offense can be capable enough because, again, UTEP's not familiar. Nobody's familiar with Jacksonville State's offense because they're moving from FCS. So I think the total moving up is correct. I actually do think this game could get up and over the total here. 53-54 is where it is now. I haven't bet the side yet, but I'm tempted to take UTEP to win on the road. Now, I know it's a road opener, but I don't think it's going to be one of those crazy environments, for a Jacksonville State home game. And I just think this is one of those games where UTEP's going to be able to lean on the run game, wear down this Jacksonville State team that struggled against the run against a weaker schedule last year. And I think a UTEP team that's going to be able to be pretty balanced on offense and move the football, do what they want. I think Jacksonville State can trade points for a while, but I could see UTEP doing in the fourth quarter what they end up what they're capable, I think, of doing this year. Use that offensive line to just lean on the opposing team, wear them down, and just let that run game take over. And eventually Deion Hankins, maybe early in the game, he stopped for 4 or 5 yard gains. Well, when you lean on that defensive line that I think is a little inferior against UTEP's offensive line in this game, you can turn those into 20-yard gains, 25-yard runs later in the game once that defense wears down at the point of attack. So I think that's what you're going to see here. I think it's going to be one of those, 4 to 7 point victories here for UTEP in this game in that kind of range. It'll be competitive, but I think UTEP gets the win, and I also like this game to go over the total. What do you think here, C-Mac? UTEP, Jacksonville State.
Yeah, UTEP. Looking this up, hasn't won a bowl game since 1967. Wow. Oof. I don't know if they do. If they get there this year and can win one. The offense you mentioned, Hankins, hand it off here. I think they have an advantage with their O-line against one of Jackson State's problems is I think they're a little small up front. I think the linebackers and secondary could be okay, but you mentioned how they have 170 yards. I think they'll be able to run it. Hardison, this guy makes you want to pull out your hair go gray, bald. Man, he is. Sometimes I've seen him make some throws, and there's times this guy, wow, he is horrible. He's still there. He needs to just take care of the ball. And he had too many picks last year, and he was very bad early on. This UTEP team wasn't good the first half of the season last year.
No excuses for him now. Everything's set on the table for him. Yep. Yeah,
and they got Smith back, the big wide receiver. Went to A&M, then came back. Big time target. So, and he'll need him. And there's always been a problem with, their new OC, Scotty O'Hara, but Dimmel still calls the plays. He's still got to kind of run it, which is, I don't know. I don't think that ever really works out in college football. And that always makes me scratch my head. I don't love that with Dimmel there. UTEP, in the past, it's been tough, and they've struggled on the road the last couple of years. They just have not gotten wins on the road. You mentioned, I think Jacksonville State's going to be pumped up for this. I think it's about as good as you'll get an atmosphere for them here. at home. You mentioned they bring back a ton. It's like 80, 90%. I think 9 on offense, 7 on defense. So I think they're going to be pumped and ready to play. You mentioned Webb, Lewis, and Jackson, running backs. They'll run it well. And Webb, that dual threat. And I think they can put up some points. Does it get over this total? I want to look at this total a little bit more because I think their defense is a little bit weak, but I'm not impressed too much with UTEP. I think this game is close. I'm leaning Jacksonville State, but we got to pick them here. That is right where I kind of should be, I think.
All right, I like it. That's the first time Conor's kind of leaning Jacksonville State. I like UTEP. As long as this stays around, pick them. I haven't locked it in yet, but I will have something with UTEP. I like this total over. The one concern I have with the over here is clearly that UTEP is a run-first offense, run-heavy, and it's a slow-pace offense. They don't run to the line of scrimmage. It's deliberate. They take time off the play clock. But the thing that I see here in this game is that this is not a great run deep. There's going to be some instances in this football game where UTEP breaks off Hankins goes off for like a 50-yard run. So you can make up for that slow pace and you can make up for a run-heavy offense with those big run plays that can gash this Jacksonville State defense. And C-Mac made the great point. There is a size advantage, UTEP O-line versus Jacksonville D-line. And I think that can definitely show up later in this game. And I think Jacksonville State's going to play fast. That's what they're going to do under Rich Rod.
Yeah.
Rich Rod always plays up tempo on offense. So I think even with the slower UTEP pace, they'll be efficient. And the efficiency will make up for lack of pace, thus helping the over.
Yeah, it might get there. So I think it's another total I might just have to be off unless I start seeing something here the next few days. But one thing with UTEP, they ran it well, but they'd have great games running it. If you had Boise game and others, and sometimes they just would look horrible, and Hardison have to make some plays, and he couldn't. So I bet you there's a lot of UTEP fans scratch their heads too the last few years with this team.
Yeah, and look, Hardison's been around now for years. This is an O-line that is very good. It's probably been one of Dimmel's better offensive lines that he's had here at UTEP. They've got all the weapons they need on offense, including, I think, a guy that's going to have a huge year at running the ball in Hankins. There's no excuses for Hardison now. He should have a really good year in this offense for UTEP. And if he doesn't, that's on him at this point. That's his problem. Maybe he's just not going to be that kind of guy. Because you're right, consistency was an issue with Hardison especially last year in particular. We'll see if UTEP can become that offense that they didn't consistently become last year throughout the course of the season. All right, the final game here for week 0 on Saturday. It is Hawaii making the long trip all the way from the island, all the way to the southeast part of the country here. Nashville, Tennessee, taking on the Vanderbilt Commodores. This is a rematch of a week 0 game last year between these two teams, which took place in Hawaii. Now it's the return match, if you will, in Nashville here. Vanderbilt's home field. Vanderbilt 15.5 point, actually up to 17.5, 18-point home favorites now. We've seen some movement toward the Commodores in this game. 54.5, 55 being the total here in this one. So here's the thing with this game. Vanderbilt went up and down the field against Hawaii last year. We all saw it. There was just no resistance put forth whatsoever by the Hawaii defense last year when they played this Vanderbilt squad. 63-10 was the final score in favor of Vanderbilt in that game. 73 points. The question's going to be with this Hawaii defense, which last year wasn't good. 123 scoring defense in the country, 34.6 points per game allowed. They weren't great through the air, stopping the pass, and they were worse against the run. 213 rushing yards per game allowed by this Hawaii run defense. And it's not necessarily what you want to see when you're playing Vanderbilt, who definitely have the ability to be able to run with the football. And Clark Lee's done a nice job there, third year. 5-7 last year. Remember, they finished strong down the stretch. I mean, that 56-0 loss to Tennessee aside, they beat Florida. They upset Kentucky down the stretch last year. There were some good finish to the season, even though this team did not make a bowl game last year. And when you look at what they've got coming back this year, A.J. Swan is going to return now as the full-time starting quarterback for this squad. It's an offense that, again, last year, pretty decent enough running the football. The passing game, they struggled a bit, but again, it coincides well with Hawaii's inability last year to stop the run consistently going in. But so they bring Swan back for this offense this year. And when you look at the rest of the roster, they have a great senior receiver, Will Shepard, returning. He was absolutely outstanding last year. They do have some changes in the running back spot, so that's going to be interesting to see because they lost Ray Davis. It looks like they're going to have this year running back by committee type of deal. But again, how much is that going to matter when you're playing Hawaii? Patrick Smith, Chase Gillespie, who are, I think, battling it out right now for the running back spot with Vanderbilt in camp. Either one's capable of getting the job done. It's going to be interesting to see with Vanderbilt on the defensive side of the football because last year this defense just wasn't good, and especially in the secondary, they were shredded. 128 passing defense last year in the country, which is just absolutely brutal. But the D-line looks to be improved from last year. Nate Clifton's back, a couple other guys returning on the D-line. So, again, that was a bad D-line last year, a struggling defensive line last year, but should be better. Secondary is a concern again this year, even though it was horrendous last year. And because when you look at some of the reports out of the spring game, Vanderbilt's pass defense was ripped apart in the spring game by their own offense. So I worry about that. And why I worry about that here, Conor, is because Hawaii's bringing back Schrager as their quarterback. We saw him last year. He was at Mississippi State at one point in time. Now he's been in with Hawaii. He was their starting quarterback last year. And Timmy Chang, the head coach, who I believe is a good hire. And I think in time, you be patient. You allow Timmy Chang the time to get this. Remember, this program was left in tatters by this moron, Todd Graham.
Oh, it was.
It went down with him at the end. And everybody bolted and all the horrible treatment of the players by him. And that's why this program fell on hard times last year. But let's also not forget, C-Mac, that even with this personnel being rough, even with some growing pains, losing to Vanderbilt 63-10, losing to Western Kentucky 49-17, Michigan 56-10, all these ugly losses early in the season for Hawaii. Look what they did down the stretch. They beat Nevada, they beat UNLV, competitive losses to Utah State, to Wyoming, to Colorado State, where they lost by single digits in those games. You already saw the building blocks of being an improved and more competitive football team.
Yeah, a covering machine at the end of the year.
They absolutely were. I mean, I'd take them as a dog, and they went on a great point spread run down the stretch last year. And I like that they've got Braden Shager back at quarterback. I called him Schrager. I'm thinking of Pete Schrager, the NFL guy on Fox. No, it's Braden Shager here for Hawaii. He's back. He's got the experience. They're going to be more run and shoot offense this year. And so what that means is they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit more. Well, we know Vanderbilt's secondary was absolutely horrendous last year. We know they got torched in the spring game, that secondary this year. So if that secondary looks as bad as it appears right now, and Hawaii's going to go to throw the football more, and they do have at least an experienced quarterback, I think Hawaii can put points on the board in this game. I really do. I really think this Hawaii offense is capable of having some success in this game. I really like this game over. The total at 55, I think it's hell. We had 73 points last year between these two teams. And remember, because Hawaii is going to be trying to throw the football a little bit more, and their offensive coordinator, Ian Shoemaker, has said the same. We're going to try to be more of like that old classic Hawaii Warriors run and shoot offense, going back to the late Colt Brennan at quarterback and the June Jones days, and going all the way back to then. They want to bring that back here at Hawaii, and the secondary's to say it's a work in progress for Vanderbilt would be an understatement. So there could be some offensive success for Hawaii in this game. But obviously, I think Hawaii's defense probably going to be up against it, trying to stop Vanderbilt as well, with Swan at quarterback, with a run game that gashed them last year, with I think an improved passing game as well. You're going to see from this Vanderbilt Commodores team this year as well in this third year under Clark Lee. They're a balanced offense. They want to be balanced with the run and the pass. Vanderbilt, they had no problem with either last year against this Hawaii defense, and they'll probably put up their share of points. I definitely like the over. Question is the side. Do you want to lay now 17-18 with Vanderbilt? I don't. I actually think there's going to be some money to be made with Hawaii this year. The question is, do I want to take them in this spot? when they lost by 53 points to them last year. And they got to travel from the island all the way to the southeast part of the U.S. That's a tough travel that Hawaii is going to have to endure for this game. I'll tell you this right now. I really like Hawaii the following game. They play Stanford after this. I really think Hawaii is going to be very, very competitive against Stanford. That's the spot I like Hawaii in more than this game, but I still lean Hawaii. I mean, I do. I really, truly believe this team's going to be a moneymaker, an ATS profit producer this year. Undervalued, and I think Timmy Chang, slowly but surely, going to get these building blocks in place for improvement with Hawaii moving forward. And we already saw signs of it last year with this Hawaii team being a point spread machine, especially as a dog down the stretch last year. Again, worry about the matchup, but I do. I would take the points with Hawaii before I lay them with Vandy here in this game, even with that ugly loss they suffered last year to Vanderbilt. What do you think here, C-Mac? Fascinating game. Last game for the Saturday slate, Hawaii Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it is. Hawaii. I remember last year, too, that game they scored a touchdown. They didn't score again. They lost 61-10.
I know, right in the first quarter. Hawaii just struck early in that game, and that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it for them. You mentioned, though, with Chang and what he's doing turn around, just how it's still going to take time, but how well they played in conference and down the stretch. We're a cash cow against the number. Obviously, there's a talent, gap here with them. I think they can move the ball, though, here a little bit on Vandy. I thought Vandy in stretches, their defense played okay, in some of these games and the upsets they had. But I think Hawaii could put, 2, maybe 3 touchdowns on the board here. But Vandy, you mentioned it. AJ Swan should be the quarterback. Backup, even in Seals. I think he's been there 6 years. I think guy's still there.
He's one of those quarterbacks. Feels like he's never going to leave the school. He's just going to live there.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't left. Going through everything the last couple of days. You mentioned how good Shepard was, breakout, and then the group of running backs that they'll have, which should be fine. They should be able to run the ball here on Hawaii. And both teams. That's why I do think it can get over. And I'd look, if you're a little bit scared of Vandy, look at them maybe first half. Hawaii on the mainland is just tough. It's just a fade for me here. It just for the most part, like they got in a conference, we were able to take them maybe on a road game or two. But this spot I don't love for them here. Look to Vandy either early here, first half, lay the points, or go with their team total. Because, both these teams you mentioned were bad defenses, but bad against the pass. Whether it's 119, the other 126, they're way low. So there shouldn't be a ton of defense. I don't know if it's crazy, but I think it could get over the total. We can get over there, at least over the 55 maybe. But, I'd look team total with Vandy. And maybe even Hawaii in this one. So this one I might have action on. I'm just going to wait and on it. But I'm looking that way, team totals.
All right, there we go. Looking in that direction there for Hawaii and Vanderbilt. And like I said, I've got real concerns about the pass defense. And then I'm pretty based on everything I've read. I'm pretty sure Hawaii is definitely going to be going more to a run and shoot offense, throw the ball a little bit more with Shager this year. And when you look at what they've got, they've Stephen McBride, Jonah Panoke, Jalen Walthall. I mean, they've got, and Walthall in particular had a really good year last year, and he was just a young receiver. He's going to be even better now. Another year of experience under his belt. Like, there's definitely some options here in the passing attack for Shager, to throw the football here for Hawaii. So, with that Swiss cheese secondary from a season ago for Vanderbilt and the struggles they've had in camp, I mean, it's definitely something that Hawaii might be able to take advantage of here in this game, which is why I think they can contribute to that total for sure. Like, Vanderbilt will put up a big number, but I think even on the road, we know they only put up 10 points last year at home against Vanderbilt, but I think even on the road, Hawaii will put up more than 10 points this year against Vanderbilt in comparison to last year.
Yeah, I think they can get over 10. And Vandy in this spot, went over 55 10 times, so solid number there.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting matchup here. And I think for Vanderbilt, look, I think there's going to be some opportunities when they're not, massive favorites, that there's going to be some opportunities and spots to back them. I'm just
Later
a
on
little
the
leery
year.
of that
Yeah.
here because these are actually bet on versus bet on, because I think there's going to be spots to actually back Vanderbilt throughout the course of the season. But I also know I've absolutely got Hawaii circled, especially when they play, teams that are a little bit more in their class range and their weight class, if you will, to be a team that I'm looking to back throughout the course. I believe in Timmy Chang. Timmy Chang already is like, I was starting to believe in Timmy Chang last year when all of a sudden this team that was supposed to be absolute shite last year all season long, and down the stretch there they are hanging in games and having a chance to win, and you already saw just significant competitive improvement in the Hawaii football team down the stretch, and I think you'll continue to see that improvement moving forward under Timmy Chang. Great stuff. Great to get our first show hitting the books under our belts.
We're back.
We hope you all enjoy it. We're back, and we're going to be here every Monday throughout the college football season, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. What's nice is, we could take a lot of time to break down the 7 games because there's only 7 games. We'll definitely have to work at a much faster pace moving forward. We're going to have, obviously, every weeknight game, many of the Saturday games, and we will be breaking them down each and every Monday right here on Hitting the Books. We always create the list before the show, and we try to highlight games that are of importance, games with some, more games that people are going to be interested in, the bigger games, the TV games, that kind of thing from the Saturday slates. We will be mentioning those specifically and previewing those on this show throughout the season. And of course, every single game that's on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, or a Friday, we will have every
weekday games
on this show, just like last year. So looking forward to another great season, our 3rd season here of Hitting the Books on Pub Sports Radio. One more shout out to everyone in the chat: Dewey Finn, Saturated, Real Deal Prime, EQ, BJ, Dabby Cab did a great show earlier, of course. The Sesh, Medicate Monday, good shit there with Dutch, Rants, Moneyline Mills, Robert Franklin, Rye Cape, Rance, Andrew G, everyone in the chat here, Ken, Al Cervic, Wine Time Sports. And by the way, Wine Time Sports, congrats on the engagement there. I know Jimmy mentioned it last week, but I'll mention it too. Congrats. Big Show Picks, what a year for him. Busy year for him, a great year for him. Good to see him in the chat. Star Child, Arthur Mead Jr., Nuke Worker, and of course Jimmy was in the chat earlier, and he'll be back, of course, with Low Shack in the Bag tomorrow. I'll be on with Jose Bouquet tomorrow. Say Hey plays at 5 p.m. Eastern time. C-Mac, what have you got going on the channel? You know what I actually want to throw out there before we wrap it up? Just a couple of, I've got a ton of futures bets, win totals bets. I'll start with you, C-Mac. What are some of your favorite win totals and futures that you maybe took a look at for college football this year?
Yeah, a couple off the top, because I remember I mentioned that South Alabama over 8.5. Nebraska, I was on that way early, under 6.5. I just don't see how they win 7 games.
I think they're better, but isn't that asking a lot for one?
Asking a ton.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. I don't know who's going to play quarterback right now. It's just that defense just, I don't know when it gets back to being okay. I don't see them winning 7 games. I took Iowa. That was early on too, like a month ago. It's kind of kept creeping up. I think it was 7.5, and I got decent juice with that. I think they win 9 games. They still don't score, but I think the defense is very good. And I think they have a really soft schedule as well. When I was going through everything, that was one there. Kentucky, I believe, was an over that I just took at 6.5. I have a couple more. Go ahead and go. Let me see if I pull it up. I have just a couple.
Yeah, I'm
more.
on the fence with Kentucky. It's a weird team. I'll say this. I mean, people think, well, Will Levis is gone. What are they going to do at the quarterback spot? Well, you bring in Devin Leary, from NC State.
Yeah.
A guy with a ton of experience. And it's not like Will Levis set the world on fire, last year with Kentucky. There's a reason why his draft stock took a hit. He didn't have that great a season, to be quite honest with you. So, yeah, I'm on the fence, but, 6.5, I could see them being a 7-win team next year, Kentucky. As far as for me, I'll throw out some of my favorite win. Like, I really love Florida State this year. I really do. I think they're 10-2 or better. I think this is the year they really challenge Clemson for supremacy in the ACC this year. I really like that win total to go over 9.5 in that conference. What's one SMU over? I like UTSA. I mean, I'm not saying this to make Jose feel good, but UTSA just to be 8-4. I know they're going up a weight class to the AAC this year, new conference, but I think they're set up well with Frank Harris back. Jeff Traylor's an outstanding coach. I mean, I think that team's still personnel-wise, coaching-wise, the fluidity at quarterback, good enough to be an 8-win team. So, UTSA at 8 wins, I like. People are writing off Illinois in the Big Ten because Chase Brown's gone and Tommy DeVito's gone, and I get it from last year's team, but they're great in the trenches. I think that quarterback, the drop-off's not going to be as steep and severe as people think. They've got that Altmaier kid coming in. I think he's going to be okay from Ole Miss. I think there's still reasons to be optimistic here for Illinois. Defense is going to be good. I can't believe, Conor, the number of people that love Wisconsin coming into this year, and it's because they love Luke Fickell. They know the great job he did at Cincinnati, and they have the personnel. And Graham Mertz is gone, and you replace him with Tanner Mordecai transferring in from SMU, which is a massive quarterback upgrade for the better. I totally get it. But you have recruited for years, CMAC, run-based personnel, run-blocking offensive linemen, run-heavy offense, and now they all of a sudden want to throw the ball, a lot more, and even more than they run it. Do they have the personnel to fit the new scheme and the new system that they're going to put in there at Wisconsin? That's my one concern there.
I agree. It's just different. It's just seeing Wisconsin, they're just going to spread it out now.
Maybe air raid all of a sudden, Wisconsin? Like, what is this? It's like the Twilight Zone. I can't believe I'm seeing it.
And I don't know. They've been a disappointment in the last few years. I think they win 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think they'll be like. I just think 8.5. Their win total is. That's asking to be 9-3, and I like Fickell, and we know what he did at Cincinnati, and he can craft a defense as good as anybody. But my goodness, 9-3, that's asking a lot, and I do think they'll be better. But holy goodness, 9 wins to cash that win total? No, thank you. Just too rich for my blood. I think people are sleeping on Illinois in that Big Ten West. Quite honestly, Iowa, I want no part of them. Iowa, this betting scandal thing is ripping through them and Iowa State. I know Cade McNamara could be better than. It should be better than Spencer Petras and any quarterback you've had recently, getting him from Michigan. But, man, I mean, it's just –
I love the schedule. Iowa State's in a little bit more trouble. I just think their schedule to me is so easy to get 8 wins.
Yeah,
I had to take it.
I mean, I'm never going to totally buy in on an Iowa offense to be good.
Yeah,
It's funny. They put out the mandate to Kirk Ferentz's son this year, who's the offensive coordinator. You've got to have this team averaging, what is it? I think 25 points per game. And we've got to win a certain number of games or he's fired. And that dynamic's weird because his dad is the head coach, Kirk Ferentz, who, of course, has been here forever. So Brian Ferentz is being put in this, ultimatum here by the AD and the department saying, this offense has been embarrassing for us the last couple of years. It's embarrassing to watch this Iowa offense the last 2 years. It's cost us football games with these great defenses we've had. And we can't put a lick of points on the board because our offense is that bad. So they basically said to Brian Ferentz here, you got to score points this year or you're out on your can after this season. And how's his dad reacting to that? Like the department's basically saying we're firing your son if you don't reach these metrics offensively, 25 points per game and win a certain number of games. That's got to be a bad dynamic internally, I think, because you think the father, Pops Ferentz, Kirk, wants to see his son basically, oh, you got to do this or you're fired. That's a weird little dynamic. And you got the betting scandal shit. I mean, to me, I want no part of Iowa over their win total. None.
I'm on it.
There you go. Liking that as well. So just quickly on futures, and then we'll wrap this show up. I'll throw out there is one win total I like quite a bit. It's in the MAC. It's Akron over 3.5. I mean, I think Akron, you saw the strides they took last year.
I don't mind it.
I definitely think, that's going to be a good ATS team. You're going to be able to cash some tickets with Akron, I think, this year. I love South Alabama over 7.5, just like Connor Mack talked about. I think they're going to be really good this year. No question about that. I also think that Georgia State under in that conference. I mean, that could go on, but lots of good win totals. I'll give you some futures for conference and division futures. I'm on Michigan to win the Big Ten just because I still think they're a little bit better than Ohio State. I mean, I still got questions about the defensive side of the football. And remember, new quarterback now for Ohio State coming into the new CJ Stroud ain't there anymore. Let's see how that goes. I still think Michigan's the class of the Big Ten. I got a plus 180 on them to win the Big Ten. And I like Illinois to win the Big Ten West, which is somewhere in the plus 750, plus 800 range for Illinois to win the Big Ten West. Wisconsin, everybody loves Wisconsin. I don't like them nearly as much. I don't buy into Iowa. Minnesota, I think, has got question marks. To me, that West division, that West side of the Big Ten is still there for the taking for Illinois, even losing Chase Brown and their quarterback, because I still think they'll be able to run the ball, because I told you, as great as Brown is running the ball, if you've got the great run blocking O-line, you can still run the ball. And I think Illinois can do that this year. And I think the quarterback might actually be as good, if not better, with Luke Altmaier coming in. So I still think Illinois can win that Big Ten West, and the price is certainly good. Texas to win the Big 12. I know Texas always disappoints, but how do you not look at Texas and think on paper they're the best team in the Big 12? Clearly they are. Talent-wise, they're loaded at quarterback. They could go with Quinn Ewers. They can go to Arch Manning. And the other kid they've got, too, is good enough to be starting. Like, they got 3 quarterbacks on their roster for Sarkisian that are good enough to be starting in week 1 this year. That's how loaded they are at quarterback. The up front in the trenches, they're great. Yeah, Malik Murphy is the other one. Malik Murphy, Arch Manning, and Quinn Ewers. So stacked at quarterback. I think they win that Big 12. What else have we got here? I've got one more that I wanted to mention here. Oh, I took a small shot to win the SEC and the SEC West with A&M. I know it's nuts because they were so bad and such an underachiever last year, but I do think this is maybe finally the year Alabama's not that clear-cut dominant team in the SEC. And I know LSU is going to be excellent this season.
Oh, yeah, again. A lot of LSU love.
A lot of LSU, yeah. Bengal Bayou love, but Bengal Tigers there. But I'll tell you what, A&M dramatically underachieved last year, and I thought the price was just a little too rich to pass up maybe them to win the SEC West and the SEC this year. And then for championship futures, Michigan, Florida State for me, Texas for me, and again, that small shot on A&M at 60-1 national. Probably not going to happen. I know I don't have Alabama. I know I don't have Georgia, who are still going to be really good. I get it. And Clemson I don't have as a national championship future this year, and they could still be in the mix. But I'm going for some value, and I think there's legit value to be national champions this year with Michigan 10-1, with Florida State 25-1, Texas 25-1. I think down the board, and like I said, A&M, I'm swinging for the fences a little bit here, but 60-1 with them.
Does Georgia lose a game? They have a pretty easy
Georgia's clearly capable of winning national championship, but I'm looking at a little more value and bang for my buck than, let's bet Georgia to win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, at Auburn, the 30th, at home versus Florida, at Tennessee, then they're home, Ole Miss, but the schedule is easy, and they have, 11.5 wins. I think they could have one loss, though, but we will see.
Yeah, they're going to be able to
basically saying they're going undefeated, their win total.
I mean, and he's just Kirby Smart's just reloaded every year. And he's getting
they're stacked.
one or two top recruiting classes in the country repeatedly now. So obviously they can win it, and I probably should bet them.
But
honestly.
New quarterback, there's some, but still they're loaded.
But how much is it going to be a change? Because we liked Stetson Bennett last year. Don't get me wrong, and he played, and he got every ounce he did out of his ability. There's no question. But he's still, I don't look at him as like this all-time great Georgia quarterback. At the end of the day, he ended up having a great season last year. But Carson Beck, they like him, and Kirby. There's no argument. There was no indecisiveness here. Right away last week, Carson Beck's our starting quarterback. He didn't leave it. He didn't have that performance in camp where he's struggling. Maybe it opens the door for the backup. No, Carson Beck was clearly established himself in camp as the starting quarterback. That's probably a good thing for Georgia. And this tight end of theirs, my man, Brock Bowers. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's going to be an absolute NFL bona fide star tight end. I can't see him being a miss. I cannot see him being a miss.
Yeah.
As a tight end in the NFL at the next level.
Me too. I mean, unless injury, because he's just like a man against boys out there. It's and that national championship game, he just ran all over him.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. So, just because I didn't put Georgia in my national championship betting portfolio, it's not me disrespecting them. It's just I'm looking for a little more value. But clearly, we obviously think they're very capable of being national champions, Georgia, once again this season. Great stuff. We'll put a wrap on the show and remind you as well, we've got the Balking Dead coming up right after 3 p.m. Eastern with Sharpie. So if you're into baseball and props, and he's been doing great all season with those, make sure you stay tuned right here to Pub Sports Radio. We got the Monday Night Live betting show tonight on the channel. Low Shack and the Bag returns tomorrow. I'll be on with Jose for Say Hey Plays tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. So lots of good stuff. And of course, we will be with you all season long here with Hitting the Books every Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, here on Pub Sports Radio, giving you your first look at the college football card each and every week. Hit the like button on the way out. For Conor, Mac, I'm Ian Cameron. This has been our first edition of Hitting the Books. Enjoy the games and good luck this Saturday for Week 0 college football. We'll see you again next Monday for another edition of Hitting the Books.